Hello and welcome. In our lesson today, we are going to tackle practical questions, paper 3 questions on nutrition. So stay tuned. Our first question, the photographs below show skulls of different mammals. Examine them and answer the questions that follow. So we have two animals, animal T and animal labeled S. Now, part A. Name the mode of nutrition and diet of the animals whose skulls are shown in the diagrams. Give reasons for your answers. So we are supposed to, number one, establish the mode of nutrition and the diet. This simply refers to the food that is consumed by the animal. And then give reasons for our answer. So let's look at animal T, which is the first one on our left. Now, animal T has long curved canines. You can clearly see how long they are. It also has another type of tooth that is distinctive in carnivores, and this is the carnassial tooth. Now, this is the tooth that is labeled as J. Now, these two characteristics are only ever found in carnivores. So that means that for this mode of nutrition, it's carnivorous. Just a reminder, when you are told to identify the mode of nutrition, it's never carnivore. A carnivore is an animal who exclusively feeds on meat or flesh. But carnivorous is the mode of nutrition for this animal. The diet, of course, it's flesh or meat. Now, reasons for our answer. Reason number one, presence of long, curved, and sharp canines. Reason number two, presence of carnassial teeth. Now let's move on to our second animal, which is animal S. Now animal S has two characteristic features of herbivores. Number one, it has a diastema. A diastema is a gap that is found in the lower jaw. Now this is represented as part K. This also has a horny pad. Now a horny pad is simply a hard surface against which grass is pressed so that it can be cut by the lower incisors. The horny pad is located on the upper jaw. Because of these two features, the mode of nutrition of animal S is herbivorous. Diet, vegetation. It feeds exclusively on vegetation like grass, shrubs, etc. Now, what are the reasons? We've mentioned them. So, presence of a horny pad and presence of a diastema. Let's move on to part B. Name the part labeled K and state the role it plays during digestion in the above animal. Now, the name of part K is diastema. Now, a diastema is a gap that is present in the lower jaw. It separates the canines from the premolars. Now, diastema provides a space for manipulation of food by the tongue. What do we mean by this? When cows graze, they use their incisors, which are located in the front of their mouth, to cut off vegetation. They then use their tongues to push this vegetation into the diastema, which is the gap. At this point, they then use their tongue once again to push their food even further back into where the premolars and molars are located. Now, this is where the actual chewing takes place. So the grinding and the breaking down of the plant material occurs at this point. So in short, the diastema provides the necessary space for the tongue to move the food around effectively. Part C, discuss the adaptive features of the tooth labeled J. Now J is a carnassial tooth. Now carnassial teeth are specialized premolars and molars that have had their structures changed in order to perform a specific function. Which function is this? Slicing through flesh and crushing bones. Now they have certain adaptations that enable them to do so. Number one is that they are large and powerful to easily crush bones. Number two is that they have smooth sides and sharp edges to easily slice through flesh. And last one, they are arranged in a way that is scissor-like, to enable them to easily slide past one another and therefore slice of flesh. Part D, write the dental formula of animal S. Now, the dental formula of an animal describes the number, type, and position of teeth in the jaws of a certain animal. So let's break that down. The type. We have 4 teeth that are present, or 4 types of teeth that are present in mammals. These are the incisors, the canines, the premolars, and molars. Now, a dental formula should always include these 4 teeth. Now, these teeth are represented by their first initials. So, you have an I representing the incisor, a C for the canine, PM for the premolars, and lastly M standing for the molars. Now, apart from the type, it also indicates the position of teeth. This simply means that how many incisors do you have on the upper jaw, how many on the lower jaw, and as such for each type of tooth, and the number. So, for example, the dental formula of animal S is as such. Now, let's look at the dental formula. So, according to this formula, this particular herbivore has no incisors on the upper jaw and only 3 on one side of its jaw. Now, with the dental formula, just a reminder, it represents half the total number of teeth in the upper and lower jaws. So, if we were to look at the example of the incisors, we are being told that there are 3. So, that means that there are 3 incisors located on the lower jaw, but only on one side of the lower jaw. So if we were to calculate the total number of incisors found on the lower jaw, it's going to be 3 multiplied by 2, giving us a total of 6. So this herbivore has a total of 6 incisors on the lower jaw. How many incisors on the upper jaw? None. Now let's look at the canine. Again, there are no incisors on the upper jaw as represented by the 0. What about on the lower jaw? We have 1 canine on one side of the jaw. So a total of 2 canines. If you look at the total number of teeth, it's 32. So whatever number you get by adding the values that are present in the dental formula should be multiplied by 2 to give you the total number of teeth in that particular animal. So if we were to take the values that we have been given, in total, they give us 16. Now that means that we have a total of 16 teeth on one side of the jaw. That means that on one side of the upper jaw and lower jaw. So we multiply it by 2 to get the total number of teeth, giving us 32. Let's tackle another question. The photograph below shows 4 specimens labeled P, Q, R, and S, which were obtained from the same animal. Examine them. So we can clearly see that the specimens are different types of teeth. So we have 4 different types of teeth, and we are supposed to identify them. Now, one way that you can use to easily identify the teeth is by the presence and number of roots. There are 2 types of teeth that have 1 root. These are the canines and the incisors. Premolars have 2 roots, and molars, on the other hand, have 3 roots. Now, if we look at specimen P, there are 3 roots that are present. So this is the molar. Specimen S has 2 roots. So this becomes the premolar. Now we are left with Q and R. If you were to look at Q, you'll notice that it's chisel shaped, and therefore this is the incisor. And R becomes the canine because it has a pointed tip. I believe we're now ready to tackle the questions. Part A, with reasons identify P and Q. So P is the molar tooth. Reasons, number 1, presence of 3 roots, and also it has a wide surface which is ridged with cusps. Q, this is the incisor, and this is because it is chisel shaped. Part B, based on their structure, suggest the functions of specimen P and Q. So P, which is the molar tooth, function is crushing and grinding of food. As for Q, which is the incisor, it functions in biting and cutting of food. Part C, in specimen P, name the part labeled A. Now A represents the cusps or the ridges. Now, if we look at specimen P, we'll note that there are 3 distinctive parts that are labeled. We have B, C, and D. So let's remind ourselves of the 3 main areas of a tooth. So the upper part of the tooth is the crown. This is the part that is visible to our eyes. The lower part is the root. Now the root is the part of the tooth that is embedded in the jaw. Between the crown and the root is where you have the neck. So this is represented as the part labeled C. Moving on, Part D, explain how specimen S is adapted to its function. Now, specimen S is the premolar. It functions in grinding and crushing of food. Now, when talking about adaptations, you have to attach the structure together with the function. So how do we phrase this? It has ridges and cusps to increase the surface area for grinding and crushing of food. And there we have it. Moving on to C. Using observable features only, state one similarity between specimens Q and R. Now this is an obvious one. They both have one root. Moving on to part 2, one difference between specimen Q and R. Now Q is chisel shaped while R has a pointed tip. So this brings us to the end of our lesson today. Please check out the next video I'll post where I'll be discussing food tests. See you there.